let me open up these articles real quick. So we're going to talk about drugs and what they're doing to the country. So it started with weed. A long time ago, we had this guy named Jack Harrer. I was a big advocate for weed. I went to conventions and things like this, trying to get it legalized. I would volunteer, and go around with the lanyard and go around at all the weed conventions and stuff like that. I was all about, we gotta legalize weed. We gotta legalize weed. And now weed's been legalized. Now, one of the big fears back in the day when Jack Harrer was advocating was, if they legalize weed, what's the next step? The next step, they're going to want to legalize, the weed is going to become like alcohol, like normalized, and the harder drugs are going to become like the weed. So things like opiates and fentanyl and meth and ketamine and mushrooms become the new weed, because weed's normal. Weed's like a cigarette now. Everybody smokes weed. And so the next step is, now they want to legalize all these things. Oh, you're crazy, Josh. They would never legalize hardcore drugs. Want to bet? Washington did it, and their overdose rate went up by 600%. 600% in the 1 year that they legalized hardcore drugs in, was it Washington or Oregon? Anyway, their overdose rate increased by 600%. And then I see all these things on my Facebook feed. Try ketamine therapy for depression, mushroom therapy for depression. Now they're trying to legalize ketamine, mushrooms, opiates. And this is typical. This has happened forever. Like cocaine was used in psychiatry. Cocaine used to be in soda. Cocaine used to help with depression. They used to say cocaine helped with depression. Now they're saying ketamine helps with depression. So it's like, do you see the pattern? And I see a lot of people, a lot of the weed advocates, I can't believe I ever advocated for it, because I'm going to preface this. Here's how I feel. If you want to smoke some weed because you like the way it makes you feel, go ahead, do it. That's you. Do you. If you want to trip on some mushrooms because you want to have you want to see some cool colors and hear some cool sounds and listen to some Tool and hang out and just stare at your poster on your wall of the different colors and stuff. If you want to do that, that's fine. Do it. I don't care. My problem is when the government starts pushing this on us, and the big pharma and the medical industrial complex, psychological industrial complex, when all these things start using drugs, they take the street drugs and they start pushing it on us, and they're trying to make money off of it. They're trying to dumb down the population. They're trying to make everybody into a bunch of mindless zombies, and they get rich off of it. And I do my share and your share of Mary Jane. And I do Mary Jane too. I do Mary Jane. But I don't think we should be saying weed is good. Weed is good for you. And this is what this lady that I wanted to come on the show to debate, she said weed is good for you. Weed is good for everybody. That's not, you can't say weed is good for everybody, because it's not. Cannabinoids and health. Cannabis, also known as marijuana, is the most frequently used illicit psychoactive substance in the world. Though it was long considered to be a soft drug, studies have proven the harmful psychiatric and addictive effects associated with its use. A number of elements are responsible for the increased complications of cannabis use, including the increase in the potency of cannabis and an evolution in the ratio between two primary components. This is also what I've always said. When I was a kid, we had regs, mids, and dro. Okay? Now, there is no such thing as regs and mids. Everything is dro. Everything is fire. Everything is chronic. I'm tired of drug dealers who, every time you go to see them for your pot, it's like, oh, I got the blue, purple, purple destroyer machine here. Oh, I got the gangster killer, blah, blah, blah. Whatever. They always got a different kind. It's like, shut up and just give me the pot. I don't care about all this stuff. It gets me high. And then I see young kids, they're like, oh, my tolerance is so high now. Well, that's because you're smoking a dab pen that's 99% proof all day. All day. I had a kid that I worked with at Wendy's, and he would go in the freezer with 2 dab pens and just whip it. And you're hearing jabs. And so the weed is getting exponentially more potent. It's getting so potent. And these kids have never smoked weed before. They didn't grow up on this. They didn't slowly build their tolerance as most junkies do. They're 14 years old and they're introduced to a 99% dab pen. That's going to destroy that kid. That's going to totally turn that kid into a brainless zombie. They're going to be walking around out of it. And that's what happens. And they're walking around, they don't want to do anything. And this is a problem. Now, for adults, if you're an adult, your brain is fully developed. You're over 24 years of age. Your brain's fully developed. You want to hit a little weed? Go ahead. I'm cool with it. But don't go around telling people it's the way to solve all their problems in life. It's the cure for all their illness. Any sort of medical illness you have. Your back hurts? Here, smoke some weed. Oh, you're sad? Here, smoke some weed. Oh, you got anxiety? Here, smoke some weed. Oh, you got glaucoma? Here. Now, it could help with glaucoma, cancer, with appetite. I'm with that. Charlotte's Web with kids with epileptic seizures. I'm with that because it's proven to instantly solve the problem. But a lot of times they're pushing weed now as good for everything. It's the cure for everything, which, you know, as a pothead, I get that feeling sometimes, you know. Anytime you feel bad, anytime you're dealing, oh, it's too hot outside today, smoke a joint. It's going to cool down a little bit. It's too cold outside today, smoke a joint. You're going to feel better. My back hurts when I woke up, smoke a joint. It's going to be all better. And this is the problem I have because they've learned how to market this and profit off of this. And now they're turning everyone into a pothead. It's not even cool to be a pothead anymore. It used to be cool. We used to have to like sneak around to be a pothead, but it doesn't end with pot. But I am showing you that there have been lots of studies done to show that pot is not good for young kids. It's not good for people before your brain's fully developed, especially if you have a family history of schizophrenia or things like this, autism, all these things. It can increase these things. And these are all official studies. But let's get off the pot. No, I'm just saying the pot is the floodgate. The pot was the entry. And sure enough, we see hard drugs being legalized, and we see ketamine and mushrooms being pushed on everybody to cure their depression. You think I want to be a flat earther? Oh, shit. Yes, Josh, it's all too much for young brains. Definitely, yeah. Yep. And then this goes back to calling good evil and evil good. Like, if you're smoking pot because it's a habit you got into, it's something you do, you're not using it for an identity, you're not using it. A problem is when people use pot or alcohol to escape things. If they're trying to run from their demons instead of facing them, or their fears or their anxiety and all these spiritual ailments they have, instead of facing them and dealing with them in the right way, they use substances, they self-medicate to escape that. That's a problem. But if you're just smoking some pot because it's a habit you have, I don't see that as good or evil. Now, biblically, we're not supposed to be intoxicated. We're supposed to be of sound mind. But, you know, if you're smoking a little joint, I don't get retarded off of smoking a joint. You know, I just, you know, it feels good. It feels a little better. But so at the same time that I will say, I know I shouldn't be smoking pot every day, at the same time, I'm going to say I don't think I'm evil for smoking some pot. But I also know that I can't go around telling people to smoke pot. It's not good. It's not good to encourage people to do these things. Now, when my dad was dying of cancer, I said, maybe you should try some edibles. Maybe they'll help you feel better. And he did. And I don't know if he liked it much. I think it helped him sleep. It helped him eat. So, you know, in situations, it's situational. And we're going to do a little Bible thumping because everybody likes to throw this verse around. And it's really dumb. They always like to throw this verse around to justify being a pothead. It's Genesis 1:29, and God said, behold, I have given you every herb bearing seed, which is upon the face of all the earth, and every tree in which is the fruit of a tree yielding seed, to you it shall be for meat. So in other translations, it's basically saying God gave us the plants to use and the animals. You know, it goes on to say, and the animals, be fruitful and multiply, all these things. But that that doesn't mean you're not going to take a bath in poison ivy. You're not going to eat poison ivy, but God gave us. What did God give us poison ivy for? Like, it doesn't mean we have to use all the plants. Like, all the plants are here to keep the world running. Everything has a purpose, and there's a purpose for every plant. But that doesn't mean we're supposed to smoke every plant, bro. If somebody, people have said that to me before in the chat, they're like, check out this Genesis verse. It says we should all be potheads. No, that's not what it says. They call it recreational use. It's not important if you look at the bigger picture. Some kids went from having 60 seizures a day to maybe 6 with oil. Yeah, I'm a big supporter of the Charlotte's Web, which is the strain of weed that they have used. They've isolated the isotopes or whatever, all the different, not all of them. They haven't isolated all of them yet. They're working on that, but they isolated one isotope, and they basically can grow weed specifically that does not get you high at all. It's called Charlotte's Web, and it's specifically used to stop epileptic seizures. And there's videos, I don't have any pulled up, of these kids who young kids, infants, and they're having seizures. They're freaking out, and they take a little drop of this stuff and put it in their lip, and instantly the kid is chill again. And I'm with that. That's what I see as God giving us these plants to use for our health and for our medicine. Now, it doesn't mean you should be picking mushrooms to go on a spiritual journey. You know, if you want to do that, you can, but don't say God told you to do it. Don't say it's going to save you from your depression, because it's not. It is not. The same way Coke used to help with depression, alcohol can help with depression. And alcohol is a depressant. But you'll still hear depressed people tell you alcohol makes them not depressed while they're drunk. Same way with ketamine. Ketamine's a dissociative. Ketamine is a dissociative, just like PCP. Why would you, if you want to help someone overcome their depression, they need to look at themselves and study themselves and face that and overcome it. Why would you want to disassociate? If you disassociate from it, you're going to be weaker to it. You're going to be more susceptible to it. And that's why, like, the same way ketamine works for depression temporarily, or the same way Coke works for depression temporarily, ketamine will work for depression temporarily. You're going to be happy. you're going to feel good while you're on ketamine. Yes, that's true. But it's not going to cure your depression. As soon as it runs out, you're going to need more. And microdosing only lasts for so long. So they'll always go to, well, it's just microdosing. We're just microdosing LSD and ketamine and mushrooms and psilocybin. Microdosing is temporary because we build tolerances. So as your tolerance goes up, you're going to need a bigger and bigger and bigger dose. You're going to develop a mental addiction to these things because they make you feel better. Now you have a mental addiction to ketamine. Your tolerance is rising. And before long, you're shooting up ketamine. And is it a Schedule 2? Coca plants, puppy shrooms. Laws are just suggestions. Vision quest in moderation. Like, and again, if you want to have a little trip, you want to do some shrooms and listen to some cool music, and you want to do some Molly and rave a little bit, whatever. Do you? But don't act like you're going on a spiritual journey. Come on now. The Johns Hopkins Center for Psychedelic and Consciousness Research is leading the way in exploring innovative treatments using psilocybin. The molecular structure of psilocybin, a naturally occurring psychedelic compound found in magic mushrooms, allows it to penetrate the central nervous system, and the scientific and medical experts are just beginning to understand its effects on the brain and mind and its potential as therapeutics for mental illness. So they're using it as a therapeutic for mental illness, but they're just beginning to understand its effects on the brain and the mind. So in the same sentence, they say, we don't know anything about this. We're going to give it to you for your depression. I'm not with it. I'm not with it. And they're going to make money. Backed by $17 million of funding. Researchers build on previous work and expand research on psychedelics for illness and wellness. One, to develop new treatments for a wider variety of psychiatric and behavioral disorders with the aspiration of treatments tailored to the specific needs of individual patients. And two, to expand research in healthy volunteers with the ultimate aspiration of opening new ways to support human thriving. Sounds like a bunch of mess to me. Sounds like some transhumanist, what am I, ultra, MK Ultra stuff. That's what it sounds like to me. You're playing with people's brains. What is psilocybin therapy? Psilocybin therapy involves a patient ingesting the chemical psilocybin while in the care of a therapist. The patient goes on a psychedelic journey in this controlled, safe environment, and the therapist facilitates their experience. See, like, they're just trying to make money off you. They're trying to make you trip in their office. What a joke. The sessions last 6 to 8 hours. I'm not sitting in no therapist couch for 6 to 8 hours. Yeah, that's because that's how long shrooms last for, or longer, which is the full duration of the drug's effects. Though in some situations, patients may use the substance more than once. Yeah, to get hooked on it. Duh. When you tripping and you're giggling and all your depression goes away and you're happy, now all of a sudden you need mushrooms every day. So you're drinking them in your coffee, which people do. Let's look in depth at psilocybin therapy, including who's a candidate for it, what benefits and risks are, and how to know if it's right for you. I don't know. I got a lot of PTSD patients. Other uses studies have been published that have explored the use of psilocybin therapy for drug addiction. Then that's what's so funny to me. They use ketamine because ketamine is very similar to the psilocybin treatment. They're kind of putting them together. I love the propofol they gave me before my procedures. I just close my eyes and go with it, wake up, and get the day going. I wouldn't recommend any substance as a cure for depression. Facts. I'll let you know when I wake up. Yeah, other psychedelics such as MDMA and ketamine have also been studied in PTSD. So MDMA, originally therapists would use it for relationship counseling. So you'd take some ecstasy, methylene dioxymethamphetamine. Methylene dioxymethamphetamine. And if anybody ever tells you Molly's pure MDMA, they're bullshitting you because, or they say Molly's pure MDMA. Usually your Molly pill is not pure MDMA. It's no cleaner than the ecstasy pill that I was getting when I was in high school. And ecstasy is just MDMA with a bunch of other additives. They'll put crack in it. They'll put meth in it. You don't really need to put meth in it because it's already pretty close to meth. It is methylene dioxymethamphetamine. It's very similar to meth. You will still get jaw jags. You will still be awake for hours. So yeah, we're giving relationships meth for their couples therapy. We're giving ketamine and other psychedelics like acid and mushrooms for depression. It sounds like some MK Ultra stuff, for real. No form of therapy is a panacea, and there will always be some people who react differently. No duh. Everybody's going to react differently because you can't even diagnose depression properly. You don't even know what depression is. You can't even correctly diagnose depression. How are you going to diagnose how a drug is going to treat somebody who has a supposed case of depression that you diagnosed as depression, but somebody else with similar symptoms is not depressed? It's ridiculous. I'm trucking, got my chips cashed in. Don't trip and drive. That can prove deadly. Fact. If you grow your hair long, it acts like an antenna and lets you communicate with the universe. Beards act as filters. Facts. I don't know if that's actually a fact. Why not just pick the mushrooms so you can eat and not trip on? I think they're healthier. Well, often the ones you can eat will still make you trip. Like even those ones I picked in the woods had small trace amounts of psilocybin in them because I was tripping a little bit. But yeah, they say this stuff can heal addiction. We're going to give you MDMA. We're going to give you methamphetamine and LSD and psilocybin and ketamine to cure your drug addiction. Yeah, that makes sense. So this is if you want to take your ketamine therapy. This is how you do it. While other medications may take weeks to notice the difference, ketamine can prove rapid effects within hours. No duh. Yeah, if you've ever done ketamine, more like seconds. Ketamine works differently than traditional medications for depression and anxiety. Can often be effective when others fail. It's a dissociative, of course. Two types of ketamine are used to treat major depression that hasn't responded to two or more medication. Treatment resistant depression. That's a new one. Treatment resistant depression. The way I found out about treatment resistant depression is by a an advertisement for a treatment for treatment-resistant depression. Racemic ketamine, which is most often given as an infusion into the bloodstream. This is sometimes called intravenous or IV. You mean they're shooting up ketamine? That's. Let's simplify it. Racemic ketamine is the kind you shoot up. Yeah, it's the kind you take the strap, smack it a couple times, and you slam that piece. Yeah, that's what it is. Okay. More about ketamine. Ketamine wellness centers. This is in Utah. So this is one of the ones that I constantly argue with. And they got a really nice website. But have you ever seen a ketamine wellness center post on Facebook about ketamine? Go in the comments and just write something. Just troll them. Just write something like, why would you give, just put something in there like you're going to make a bunch of drug addicts by giving people ketamine. And their response is going to be the most immature. They're going to call you're a dumb effing blah, blah. They're going to cuss. They're going to say a bunch of crap, and then they'll remove the post. I've got them to do it 3 times. I've got this place, the Ketamine Wellness Center, to remove 3 of their posts because I just put a sentence in there, and then they go after me. It's so funny. And then they end up removing their own posts because they're going to get banned because they say stuff that would get them banned, like call me a moron and an idiot and blah, 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 blah. But yeah, so ketamine wellness, they're trying to legalize it in Utah. It's a big thing. It's one of, they're pushing it in Utah. That's another reason why I talk about it a lot. It's cat tranquilizer. Facts. Yeah, it is cat tranquilizer. Yeah, that's what I said in one of the posts. I said, why are you giving cat tranquilizer to people for depression? And they freaked out on me, and then they ended up removing their post. Ketamine, or when huffing glue just doesn't quite do it for you anymore. Ketamine.
Not the best. Yeah, I wasn't very cool on it, but I fucking thought I was.
That's one of the weird things about ketamine is it gives you this bizarre, narcissism. It really fucks with your life.
I'm gonna take you guys into a blast from the past. See if anybody remembers this. John C. Lilly took his first dose of ketamine to help with his chronic migraine headaches. It worked, and soon, see, with headaches, yeah, you get high, it's gonna fix your headache. It worked, and soon Lilly, a renowned counterculture physician, close associate of 1960s psychedelic guru Timothy Leary, was writing increased doses of the drugs into some of the strangest research of the late 20th century. Ketamine, first developed as an anesthetic, figured largely into 2 of Lilly's most famous projects, the invention of the isolation tank and his NASA-funded efforts to communicate with dolphins. What? This is what happens when you do too much ketamine. You start getting money from NASA to talk to dolphins. That evening, I took 150 milligrams of ketamine, Lilly said in one interview, describing one of his frequent perceived interactions with other dimensional beings. And suddenly, the Earth Coincidence Control Office, the Earth Coincidence Control Office, removed my penis and handed it to me. What? After his wife came to comfort him, how did she? She had to make sure he knew that his penis was still there. Lilly confirmed that he was unharmed. Such is the unconventional complex chemical history of ketamine, a form which the Food and Drug Administration approved this week as the first new type of antidepressant in decades. A nasal spray known as esketamine holds great promise for people with treatment-resistant depression. God, so dumb, dude. We're going to get into some deeper stuff. We're going to be talking about the fentanyl, but they'll fearmonger you with fentanyl. Check this out. This is from Florida, and I've known about this for a while. Tallahassee, Florida Attorney General Ashley Moody is warning Floridians of a new deadly synthetic opioid found in Florida called isotonitazine. Isotonitazine, commonly referred to as ISO. According to reports, ISO is approximately 20 to 100 times stronger than fentanyl, an already incredibly dangerous opioid. Similar to fentanyl, this new synthetic opioid is being mixed with other drugs and appearing in illicit drug market, possibly in powder or pill form. Often users have no idea that a lethal synthetic opioid is mixed into a drug until it is too late. So in Florida, they got a drug 20 to 100 times stronger than fentanyl. So ISO, a dangerous synthetic opioid, stronger than fentanyl, showing up in Florida. A powerful synthetic, increasingly showing up in overdoses and deaths across the country. And it's also here in Florida. Opioid epidemic is considered a public health emergency. See, people will compare the crack epidemic to the opioid epidemic. Fentanyl can kill you if you don't have a tolerance to fentanyl. Now, here's one thing I will say: a lot of people kind of over exaggerate the fentanyl thing. Um, when I was a junkie, I quit using heroin right around the time fentanyl started popping off. If we heard a dealer had fentanyl and somebody overdosed, we're going to that dealer. That's the first dealer we're going to. We were searching for the fentanyl. We wanted the fentanyl. Now, I wasn't a big fan of the fentanyl because it was so it was it was so strong, and it leaned mainly towards the sleepiness and the naughtiness. I would do the fentanyl and I'd be out like that. And I didn't like it because I didn't want to just fall asleep. I wanted to enjoy the euphoria that you get from the heroin and things like this. I wanted to be high, basically. But I did fentanyl. I shot up fentanyl multiple times, and I was fine. Never overdosed off of it. I really didn't like it because it was just too. You take it and you pass out. It was too strong. Um, but a lot of people, as soon as they heard they had fentanyl, especially if people with old school junkies, 20-year junkies and stuff, they wanted the fentanyl because they didn't get anything out of heroin anymore. So they had to get the fentanyl. My tolerance was not that high yet. But um, the point I'm making is these old school junkies look for the fentanyl. They're searching for the fentanyl. If they hear somebody died, they're going to that dealer because our bodies constantly build up tolerances to these opiates, specifically opiates. All drugs you can build up tolerances to, I think. Maybe not all of them, but most of them, your body will build up tolerances over time. But specifically heroin and opiates, you constantly will keep gaining tolerance. And to the point where eventually fentanyl isn't doing anything for you. So you got to move up to the ISO. And in 10 years, they're going to have something 100 times stronger than ISO. It's just going to keep happening like this. And the problem is when we start seeing people legalize it, states legalizing it and making places where people can go and shoot up fentanyl. In Canada, you can take your dirty street fentanyl to the doctor, to some exchange place, and they'll exchange your dirty street fentanyl out for clean fentanyl. Because these 20-year-old old school addicts, they're not dying from too much opiates. When they die from a fentanyl overdose, it's because it's dirty fentanyl and it's mixed with something, and something happens and they die. So in Canada, they just say, oh, well, let's give them the clean stuff so they won't die. So they're not overdosing, but their tolerance is getting so astronomically high that they need the next strongest thing. Well, when the next strongest thing comes out to appease the junkies, which Big Pharma wants to do while killing them, while making them junkies, it keeps them, it builds them up to put them down. Basically, it gives them the stronger drug to keep them held down. And then as they start to get to where that they're too tolerant of that and they start to have some clarity in life, then Big Pharma, the pharmaceutical companies, these pill pushers will come out with a stronger opiate. They'll come out with something stronger. Oh, your Xanax isn't turning you into a mindless zombie enough anymore. Here, let's put you on ketamine. And that's what this is all about. They want everybody to be mindless zombies. It's eugenics. They can't just blatantly kill all the addicts. So instead, they just keep the addicts in a constant state of zombification where they're walking around like they got a hole drilled in their skull and got muriatic acid put in there. They're just turned into brainless zombies. Going to go to bed later, name. Thanks for the super chat earlier. 10-0. But then we get crocodile. What's crocodile? Desomorphine. Crocodile is a Russian opiate. In Russia, they're taking this. They're buying these codeine syrups and they're baking them down and doing chemical processes to them. Similar way white people make meth in America, the Russian people are doing it to make opiates in Russia, and they've made crocodile, which is desomorphine. We got flocka, bath salts, flocka. This is another big one. So flocka just making people go absolutely insane, and it's not gonna. And flocka is worse than meth, guys. And it used to be, pot was here, and then you had your shrooms and your acid and your coke, and then you had crack and meth and heroin. Well, now crack and meth and heroin is nothing compared to ketamine, iso, fentanyl, flocka, crocodile. And 10 years from now, these drugs aren't going to be nothing, and they're going to be trying to legalize these drugs. Bet. You don't believe me? Bet. Because I was right before. Even when I was young, and everybody knew we legalized pot, next thing they're going to want to legalize coke and heroin. Sure enough, that's what happened. And sure enough, something stronger than coke and heroin is going to come out. Crack and fentanyl. Well, sure enough, one day they're going to want to legalize those. Dr. Urban, Sudafed, aisle 5. I didn't see a chat. Was not me, sir. Oh, somebody sent a $5 super chat.
Over a cheap and highly addictive synthetic drug known as flocka. It causes all sorts of paranoid, even deadly behavior. In South Florida, it's
they go
compared to the
crazy. They
crack
lose their
cocaine
freaking minds.
epidemic of the 80s. And
But
like
sometimes
me,
I would just shoot up
often
coffee.
stripping off their clothes as their temperatures soar up to 105 degrees. Flocka-related deaths in Broward County in the last year, 60.
Of all the
60.
drugs that I've seen, cocaine, amphetamine,
You know, why don't we hear more about
Oxycontin,
this?
This is the absolute worst.
Part of its appeal.
And they always
so
say that
cheap.
too.
$5 will get
Right now, Flocka is the absolute worst. In 10 years, Flocka is going to be the cure for depression. Watch.
$5 get you high.
I remember just running, feeling like people were chasing me.
In March, Stephanie thought she was smoking pot, but it was laced with flocka, a white granular
with
powder.
Flocka?
Where
What?
did you end up?
And
On
that's
top
what's
of a
crazy.
bridge. On top of a bridge. But
So that's where the real problem lies with these drugs, is that when they start mixing it into things like, if you're going to buy a bag of Coke and somebody puts fentanyl in it, you are not a seasoned junkie. You have no tolerance to opiates, right? You like doing a little Coke every now and then, right? And somebody puts fentanyl in it, you're dead. You're going to die. The smallest amount of fentanyl is going to kill you because you have no tolerance to opiates. Now, if you've been shooting up heroin for 3 years, you could shoot up some fentanyl. You're going to be all right. But if you're somebody who goes out to the party every now and then and buys a bag of Coke, and you get fentanyl in it, you're dead. If you smoke a little weed, and you get some weed with some flocka or some fentanyl or some iso in it, you're dead. And that's the problem. That's a problem. And all this stuff, it's not some guy sitting in his room creating this stuff. Maybe occasionally some little independent chemist will come up with a new drug. But for the most part, all these drugs are coming out of big pharma. They're coming out of pharmaceutical industries. The fentanyl is coming from the same place the COVID came from. It's coming from China. And then they ship it over to Mexico, and then they sneak it in across the border. 80% of our opiates come across our border. And it's sick, and I'm really passionate about it because I used to be passionate about trying to get weed legalized. I've always been into drugs, Now I'm trying to flip the other leaf, or what am I trying to say? I'm trying to do the opposite. I'm being passionate about, we got to stop this. And again, if you smoke a little weed, you do a little shrooms every now and then. Again, I'm not attacking you. I'm not saying you're going to hell, or you're wrong, or don't do that. But I'm saying, as a whole, as a culture, as America, we can't keep pushing drugs on people as a solution to their problems. And they're just going to keep getting worse. And we're just going to keep legalizing more and more. And people are losing their minds and turning into a bunch of brainless zombies.
Flocka is manufactured in China. It has been easily bought online and delivered in the mail here in the U.S.
China. So flocka comes from China too. So fentanyl and flocka coming from China. And this is why I say nuclear war is unnecessary. There's not going to be another nuclear war because China is destroying us without firing a single shot. They're putting fentanyl, they're putting flocka, they're putting drugs out, they're doing COVID stuff, they're controlling the children's minds through TikTok, filling them with this gender crap and all this other LGBT low IQ mess. And like, China is wiping us out as a country without firing a single shot. All this stuff about nukes is just fear-mongering. Nobody's shooting a nuke. We have bigger problems to deal with, more legit problems than Russia using a Poseidon nuke to make a radiated tsunami that's going to wipe out the world. That's not going to happen. But what is happening right in front of our eyes is China is destroying America little by little using smarter tactics. Smarter tactics.
If your product is seized by authorities, we'll replace it free of charge.
Dealers can get rich quick. A kilo that costs $1,500 online has a street value of $50,000.
Damn.
This is the Silicon Valley of drug
Wow.
smuggling.
And it doesn't take a large drug smuggling organization to bring it in.
Sometimes the organization is a
Through the border?
college kid who hires his friends.
There's not much of a barrier here for a startup.
We're calling it the devil's drug.
There's a cops trying to restrain somebody high on PCP, which PCP is in the same family as ketamine. It's a dissociative. It's stronger than ketamine. It's less medical grade than ketamine. More like a street version of ketamine. That's what Steve-O was saying earlier. I think you guys heard that. But I'm going to show you guys something we call excited delirium in the drug world, which is when you are speedballing, doing uppers and downers at the same time, or you're on a drug like PCP, where basically your heart is going rapidly, you have incredible strength, you don't feel pain, and when people are on drugs, you can taser them. People on PCP have ripped stop signs out of the ground, lifted cars, multiple handcuffs, multiple officers, multiple taser shots. And look. Check this out. What's this look like? Look. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 officers on top of this guy, tasering him. And look at that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 guy comes up on top of this guy, handcuffing him, tasing him, and he didn't die. You know why? Because he was high as a kite. You know who else was high as a kite? Georgia, Florida. Georgia, Florida was experiencing excited delirium just like this guy, because Georgia, Florida had ate a bunch of meth and fentanyl. And that's why when the officers were kneeling lightly on his back, you could see him lifting them up into the air. They were nothing to him. Just like these cops are nothing to this guy who's on PCP. That's called excited delirium. That's what happens when you do a lot of drugs. And just saying, it happens all the time. Kind of interesting, right before an election, it got called to our attention like it was some big horrible thing. But that's all I got. That's everything. Talked about drugs. We even did a little Bible thumping. The attack on men. The attack on America by drugging everybody up. Russia. Crimea River. All the stuff. We covered it all. Hey guys, thank you for checking out this clip from the Dreaded Conservative Show every Monday night, 5 p.m. Pacific time, 8 p.m. Eastern time. If you guys like the video, please give it a thumbs up. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't subscribed yet. Hit the bell so you know whenever I go live, not just for the Dreaded Conservative Show, but for all the game streams and UFC streams and other fun stuff that we do throughout the week. And make sure you comment and share this video with a friend. But until next time, I got a video, I got a playlist. You guys can check those out, but I'm out. Peace.